So we'll start with some meditation. Just find a comfortable position. When we just arrive here, arrive in this moment with this body and this mind. These feelings, whatever they are, kindly and gently tuning in to the experience in this present moment. Maybe using the breath as a way to focus our attention. With the breath coming in, being at ease, happy, relaxed. With the breath going out, seeing if we can let go a bit more, just into this present moment. Of course, we carry the energy of whatever happened before into the moment we're experiencing now. Maybe some residue of excitement or fear or restlessness, whatever it might be, or joy, happiness, energy. And just noticing that whatever happened before has its print on what's happening now, how it feels. It's like this. And then we want to fully engage, be aware and present with what it is right now. When we sit down to meditate, we have this opportunity to set everything else aside. Whatever responsibilities or interactions or items on the to-do list or whatever it might be, we have this opportunity to set that down and just feel what we feel. Whether those feelings come from the body or from the mind, physical or mental. Just breathing and relaxing. And once we've tuned into what we're feeling in this present moment, then we have an opportunity to direct our attention, maybe first to the body, aware of any tightness or stress, and bringing some softness, kindness, and acceptance to that. Letting the shoulders relax, the jaw relax, letting the belly relax. And any other part that might be a little bit tight or tense. Or if there's any pain, bringing some kind attention to that. Without the sense of wanting to get rid of it, but just to be present with it. Just relax and feel. And the same for the mind, noticing the activity that's in the mind, the residue of whatever was happening before. And inviting that residue, that activity to become more and more calm. You want to be present with whatever's there. Really take it in and then encourage the mind to be a little bit more calm and let go. We can turn our attention to the mood of the mind, noticing that is kind of a backdrop to the actual thoughts that can pop up in the mind. But that mood can be one that's light, happy, contented, pleasant, or it can be down-pulling, maybe depressive, anxious. Whatever that mood is or that state of the mind, we can be first present with it, accepting it's like this. Knowing that all of these things change. But before we change, before we direct it to accept it, it's okay. It's okay to feel this way. It's okay to be present important actually to this mind, this mental state. And then the Buddha says we can make that mind happier. Call in some thought or some image that uplifts the mind. Brings more happiness, more joy. If your body and mind are used to breath meditation, then maybe it comes merely through breathing in and breathing out, feeling that energy in the body, feeling the breath energy spread through the whole body, through the whole awareness around the body. Maybe that gladdening comes from putting attention on right intention. Letting go, kindness, compassion, or gentleness. Whatever words fit those qualities that come with right intention. Sometimes that's enough to lift up the mind. Or maybe the thought of being here together with others who are practicing, developing, knowing a little about one another's stories, feeling the compassion for each other as we navigate life's challenges. We're really all in the same boat. So sometimes what happens in meditation isn't extreme joy, but maybe a softness of heart, kindness, compassion, and some courage to be present with the way things are in the present moment. Knowing that it's through facing what is that brings wisdom and freedom. And in that freedom, there is joy. when we face and be present, and we're present with the way it is now, whatever those feelings are, whatever those thoughts are, whatever the experience is. And from that, uplift the mind, encourage the mind in the frame and the way of seeing and living the Dhamma. Then, because we've been fully present with the way things are, we don't have to worry about doubt. We're not skipping over and trying to act like that dukkha doesn't exist, or that we don't have the thoughts that we'd rather not have, and so on like that. Instead, we really understand our mind and our body. We don't have to feel insecure, because we did experience, we did investigate, we did allow what is to be present to the mind. And confidence doesn't come from somehow purifying or perfecting the body and mind. It comes from knowing it, facing it, being willing to be present with whatever the experience is, and seeing it with Dhamma, with wisdom. And then, regardless of what the situation is, confidence arises, joy arises, relief comes. So welcome, everyone. It's nice to see you all, and we'll get a chance to check in a little bit later. I thought I'd start with a few reflections, just share some of the things I've been thinking about, and then I want to hear your experiences and your questions or comments. I really appreciate this community so much, and how people are working with the Dhamma and their experience with so much authenticity and commitment. And I know it comes because you have each of you, the sense of the Dhamma actually being effective. You've seen it in your own practice, or we've all, whatever part of the path we feel we haven't traveled yet, we we can take it in from those who are further along the line and really recognize the benefits. So it gives us the encouragement to really use this Dhamma in a directly practical manner that has so much power in it. And so I really appreciate talking with you, and I get many opportunities usually through a week to talk with people, and it's all about Dhamma. I mean, there's plenty of other conversations too, but generally they come back to Dhamma. They didn't start there. I've been really noticing the importance, and we all know this, but I think it's an important reminder to really appreciate the importance of being present with whatever is happening right now in this moment. It's really easy to skip over it because we have these coping mechanisms that we've developed, all this conditioning that really has served us, to be able to deal with traumatic experiences, or maybe, whether even if we wouldn't think of them as traumatic, but just recognizing that our body and mind have come up with strategies and tactics to keep us safe or keep us afloat. And that those can be barriers to really seeing the true nature of reality at some point, because we jump to solutions and ways of feeling better before we actually take in what's happening in the present moment. So there's a little bit of a retraining of the mind so that we really stop, pause in the present moment and be present with the way it is right now. And of course, that's a different experience for every one of us who's here right now. Each of us has our own internal experience based on our conditioning, based on what's happened to us so far today, based on what chemicals are coursing, whether we've had coffee or not. It has all different kinds of influences. And we have our conditioning of our perception, so even what we're hearing is going to land differently with each of us. It's quite the mixture. And to be willing to be present with whatever we're experiencing takes some conscious awareness. Just to be willing to be present with whatever there might be happening in the body, for example, whatever aches or pains or discomfort or restlessness, whatever is there, whatever is happening in the mind. And we can experience things that we can be shocked by what we experience sometimes, wondering how it's possible that our mind can come up with such a, maybe a very ugly thought or whatever it is. Sometimes we can feel ashamed of how we might feel or how we might think. Sometimes we can really get judgmental with ourselves. Either direction, it can be problematic. We can be judgmental, thinking how bad it is to feel the way we feel or think the way we think. Or we can puff up the ego with how great it is that I think like this. We can experience it going in all kinds of ways. But I want to encourage or remind us to be present with whatever that is, both the initial stimulus and the response to it that comes pretty automatically because of our conditioning and our habits. And then to notice and recognize that it's okay. It's okay to feel what we're feeling, no matter what that is. And notice the secondary judgments or how the sense of self gets a hold of it and what it does with it. Just notice that. It's like noticing what the personality does in our particular case. Are we judging ourselves, like, oh, I shouldn't think like this, or, at some point, yeah, the Buddha talks about rejecting the unwholesome thoughts and encouraging the wholesome ones, rejecting the wrong intention, thoughts of cruelty, thoughts of ill will, thoughts of sensual desire. But he always says, first be present and know what is there. And why is that important? It's because if we can train ourselves to be present with what's there and fully accept it, I know that there's some resistance, there can be some resistance in the mind to fully accepting what's there, because then it sounds like, well, I'm just going to give up and not train the mind, or I'll somehow be more affected by this if I acknowledge its presence. But in actuality, this being present with it, as long as it has this other component, which is Dhamma, to be present with what we're experiencing and see it through the lens of the Dhamma. So some ugly thought comes into the mind, let's say, maybe a thought of cruelty, for example. To be present with it, to see it for what it is, and then see it through the Dhamma. And if we're really seeing it with the Dhamma, it won't have the harsh negative edge that our self-criticism can often have. It will have that right intention, that kindness and compassion, and the letting go, the non-ownership of it, non-identification from the personality view. And this can apply to absolutely everything that we can experience in the present moment. That we can be present with it and see what, and it's like, whoa, look at that. That thought of jealousy, or that aversion, that strong feeling of wanting to get rid of something. And then just seeing that that's there. This is what the mind is engaged in at the moment. Can we see it with the lens of the Dhamma? Okay, I really want to get rid of this attitude, or I really want to get rid of this pain I'm experiencing in the body, or I really want to get rid of having to be around this particular person, or that whole list that we have in the chanting, what dukkha comes from. It's dukkha. Birth is dukkha, aging is dukkha, death is dukkha, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair are dukkha. Association with what we don't like is dukkha. Being separated from what we like is dukkha. Basically, not getting what we want is dukkha. That can be the basis for, whatever we're experiencing. So we want to be present with what we're experiencing fully. it's helpful probably to identify which of those things is the root of it. Yeah, I don't like this because it's sad. You hear something in the news and there's a lot of feeling. If we can be present with that feeling first and foremost, really take it in, and then see with the Dhamma what's actually happening there, both internally in ourselves and then in the world. And how do we see it in the world? Well, we can see that whatever's happening there is driven by greed, hatred, and delusion. And then there might be a temptation to just brush it off with that kind of thought. But then again, we're pulling away. We're not really engaging directly and authentically with it. So it's not about spiritual bypassing by saying, oh, that's just the way the world is. It's more about really taking in the fact that we are affected by these causes and conditions, these sankharas, these empty phenomena, and that it matters. So to appreciate, understand with compassion what's happening. And then when we come to a certain point of we really are in a real sense very settled with whatever we're experiencing, seeing it with Dhamma, that's the time we can make decisions about how we want to respond. What can I do? What can I do that would be in accordance with Dhamma and provide some positive support? Not coming from the sense of self, but coming from a place of offering a gift into this worldly experience. And that attitude, that approach can operate internally with training our own mind, and it can be expressed externally in the world in a way that's more likely to be helpful than the initial knee-jerk reaction that has the underlying aversion or desire or ignorance accompanying it. So that's the general idea. Being present in this moment with whatever is there without turning away, covering it over. It's really being there with it, honestly, directly. Bringing that sense of right intention and Dhamma to it. Even the few layers that happen in the present moment so quickly, the specific feeling or thought, and the other immediate thoughts or feelings that come with it afterwards. Being present with all of that, seeing it with the Dhamma, and then looking at what kind of response is going to be helpful here. And why do we do this? Because we gradually learn how to be with what we don't like. We gradually learn how to be with being separated from what we like. We gradually learn how to be with aging, sickness, and death in ways that relieve us in the moment and prepare us for major changes. without resorting to greed, hatred, and delusion. When those are there, we see them, work with those all the same way, and cultivate this resilience, this stamina to work with what's happening. And then, like in this guided meditation, where that leads is stability, confidence, a kind of happiness, I would say, even in the midst of all kinds of variations of feeling and thought. Because there's the awareness of what's beyond the functioning of the material, conventional, empty reality here in this conditioned realm. Knowing what's actually there because of facing it directly again and again. Knowing what's actually there and how to respond to it with Dhamma because of facing it and doing that again and again. This is what really makes us strong and calm and kind through everything. And I, there's so many ways to pick things up and just slip off the track a bit. It doesn't mean we don't feel these things. It doesn't mean we don't think these thoughts. It doesn't mean, even the Buddha talked about this. He said, for an arahant, even those, whatever arises in the mind, if some unwholesome thought arises in the mind, it's like a coal burning out, flying out of the fire, a spark flying out of the fire, lands on dry ground and it's gone just like that. Or you set a skillet out in the hot sun for hours and then, you drip some water on it and it sizzles away right away. And then that's how those feelings that are going to naturally come through the body and mind just are gone immediately if we have this training of recognizing the insight, recognizing the true nature of where feeling comes from. The greed, hatred, and delusion doesn't stand a chance anymore because the wisdom is really there. And the training to understand it, the experience of understanding it, seeing it directly over and over again. That's really how the habit, the pattern, the training of the mind brings us to this enduring calm, even though the fluctuations are happening. That's not where we land. So, thanks for listening. I'd love to hear any comments or questions. Yes, Shane.
Thank you for speaking today, Ayya. I really appreciate it. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. So I was just kind of curious. Can you expand on that more than once about?
Okay, missed a little bit of that. Speaking more than once about
Seeing things with the Dhamma, and I was just kind of wondering if you could kind of expand on that a little bit about kind of what that means kind of internally.
Yeah. Okay, so examples would probably help. Like, okay, one example is like, okay, um, like I see a headline in the New York Times. We happen to have a subscription through something that was given to us. And I want to know a little about the news, at least. I want to know what's going on so I can be of use. But there's some headline about some foolishness that's going on, and it really is upsetting because it's not just foolishness, it really is affecting like millions of people. And there's maybe there's a strongly aversive thought, like how can they be so stupid, or how can people be so cruel, or something like that. So how does first take that in? This is what the feeling is. This is what the thought is in response to that, what I've seen, heard, or, and then being able to take that in and feel that, and then reflect on what is the Dhamma, what is the truth about this. So the truth about it is that this greed and hatred and delusion that is motivating this behavior, maybe even to order the killing of many people, or the whatever, we've got so many things in the news right now. And then to recognize that this, how truly detrimental this wrong view is that people are operating from, and to see the greed behind it, and to see the hatred behind it. Obviously the delusion too. And to remember that this happens over and over again throughout human history, and it's going to continue to happen. Like one sutta we read recently where the Buddha says, have you ever seen this happen? He said, oh yeah, I've seen that happen and I'll see it again. It's like we know that this is not going to end as long as greed, hatred, and delusion are present. And then to recognize that and to take in, if we're able to really think, reflect upon how this is ongoing. The cycle, the samsaric cycle just keeps happening. It doesn't have an end. It doesn't have a discoverable beginning, said the Buddha, and it doesn't have an ending either until you step off the wheel, basically, step out of it. So if we really want to go into a deeper reflection on the Dhamma, this is the way it would, one way it might unfold. And then when we recognize that and we see that our own feelings, because whatever we look at on the outside, we want to turn around and reflect about our own personal experience and our own personal conditioning. And that's something I didn't mention in the talk, is that one way that we bypass feeling what we actually feel or being present with our experience in the moment is that we blame what's outside of us. We blame other people, we blame the conditions of the world, we blame the climate change, we blame whatever, and we can blame all kinds of things, but it doesn't help us wake up. So when we turn and we look at how does this operate in me, then we can, and we need to do that with kindness. We need to do that with compassion. And when we investigate the Dhamma in ourselves and we see the way our own greed, hatred, and delusion are operating, then we have a chance to bring the healing of the Dhamma to it, like how I can change this, or how I can put this in context, maybe memories from the past, we can start to recognize how to let go of that. That it's also just this empty phenomena. And when we do that, we have to be careful we're not spiritual bypassing again, but that we actually understand it, the emptiness of it. And then we can be present with that, and we can let it go. So that's an example. Yeah, thank you for that question.
Thank you, Ayya.
Yeah. Now we want to observe the mind as we work with these things, because we want to see if how we're reflecting takes us down into like depressive states, or if it uplifts us into more joyful states. Because if we reflect on it in light of the Dhamma, in a way that we can really see with wisdom, there will be joy and happiness that come up from it. And if it isn't that way, then we use the same process to understand those downpulling states, so that we're not stuck there, that we actually are able to be present with that depressive feeling and look at what's underneath it. What's the conditioning from our childhood, maybe, or who knows how many lifetimes, and how can I see that, be present with it, bring compassion to it, and understand that now I can move beyond that, because I already know it. So when the Buddha said First Noble Truth, we need to turn towards the dukkha and understand it. And then in the Second Noble Truth, to understand the root of it. The root is always one of three things. This is another way to reflect. It's either sensual desire, wanting some kind of comfort or something through the sensual experience, through the senses, or it's wanting to become, I want to be something different. I want the world to be different. I want peace in the world. I want harmony in the world. I want people to all be taken care of. These are really beautiful thoughts, beautiful ideals, but they're not realizable in this world. Only from time to time, in certain contexts, we can get that going for a while, but then it's going to fall apart again, because this is the greed, hatred, and delusion world here we're in. And then the third one, the wanting to get rid of. So I want something to become a certain way, or I want to get rid of something. And so these roots of our discomfort, we need to abandon them. And then we experience the relief, the cessation. And it's only through experiencing it that we actually know Dhamma. We know that experience. We know that Nibbana is real, because before that, we just have to have the faith that it will subside, that it ceases through wisdom, through direct experience. But once we have a taste of that, then we know that cessation is inevitable, really, if we do the work that leads up to it. Shane?
I don't mean to dominate the conversation. Sorry. So when we're looking at things in the Dhamma, or looking at things with from the context of Dhamma, it sounds kind of like what you're saying is kind of be with how we're feeling, like whatever that might, and it almost sounds like what you're saying is kind of just take that and kind of put it through like the four noble suffering cause to the and then maybe to take that even like a step further and kind of look at like the eightfold path, and like, okay, I feel this, like what part of that eightfold path is appropriate to apply in this kind of situation? Like, am I seeing this right? Okay, I'm not, but so how can I, kind of working, how can I see this with a better view, or whatever it might be? Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yes, I mean, you can do it that way. Of course, we want to be practicing the pieces of the Noble Eightfold Path all the time. Anyway, we want to. Sometimes it's beneficial to look at, what do I think is the weakest link here in my Noble Eightfold Path? Which one do I want to put some attention on right now to develop? But I like what you're saying, because you can also do that in this process. So you can move through the first three noble truths with any situation we're experiencing. And then we could reflect on, okay, which part of the Noble Eightfold Path here maybe has been taking a pounding and needs some shoring up, or what part is really going to be helpful here. And there are lots of other ways to reflect too, like for the Bellingham Insight Society, Meditation Society, we're gearing up to give a retreat up there. By the way, there's still space, just in case anybody wants to check it out. And we're going to be talking about the 5 powers, and it's mindfulness, energy, samadhi, faith, I forgot that one, comes more early on, faith and wisdom. So those 5 powers, it's like, that's another lens you can use. Like, how do those 5 powers help me to work through this dukkha that I'm experiencing? How can they come to my aid or be strengthened in order to, really develop resilience and an ability to really investigate, see through this experience? So the Buddha gave so many options. We could take probably any part of the 37 wings of awakening. So the Noble Eightfold Path is in there, but so are the 7 factors of enlightenment and the 5 powers and faculties and so on. So we've got all these tools, and we can reach into our tool bag and pull them out and make use of them in this way, because it's only by facing our direct experience, that having our experience, really being present with it, that we're working through things at a heart level. If we think that this practice is only about being mindful, like being present with what you're doing at the moment, or if it's only about sitting in meditation and making the mind be still, it's not enough. It's not enough. It's important. Those are components. Mindfulness, though, really is for this, taking it much more to ground zero around our experience, what we're experiencing in this present moment and what we're doing with it. It's not just about the material world, being present with, what I'm eating or where I'm walking. I mean, that's good. It's good practice, but we have to turn towards our body-mind experience, the part that's really got the greed, hatred, and delusion motivating it.
Thank you, Ayya.
Thank you, Shane.
Will you have a retreat for the 7 steps to enlightenment?
Yeah. Yes, Nancy.
Hi, thank you, Ayya. I've been finding I'm very distractible in my meditation, and probably life as well. And part of it is I think I'm busy, both with my own stuff and with things that I do from generosity, from space of generosity, but still it ends up being a very busy life. And so I meditate mornings, and just getting to the in and out breathing takes a while.
Yeah.
And then I move on in meditation, and yeah, that gets distracted. I'm not very concentrated. Can you give some pointers? And
Yeah.
I try to pay attention to the distraction and see it as distraction. So I try to bring my mindfulness to the distraction, to the fact that I've left again, and come back to it. But if there's any pointers or, I don't know, shortcuts, that would be good to calming the mind. I'd appreciate
Yeah, it's not it. Thank you, Nancy. That's a really good question, because that's common for everybody, even if they've, like you, been meditating for decades. And the truth is, it's not a shortcut, it's the long cut. You need to spend more time meditating. You need to recognize that there is absolutely no end to how many generous acts you can do, and there's no end to the busyness of the world. But we need to really consciously set aside more time to become still, more time to let the mind be free of all of the planning and all of the activity. And we have to know ourselves. So it's not like we can be busy, and then sit down for that hour or whatever we allot and expect the mind to just kind of put on the brakes and shut it all down. We have to do something different in life to help the mind become quiet. Now, that can be much more mindfulness with something we are already doing, especially if it's some repetitive task like gardening or dishes or whatever we're doing. But it is really important to figure out what it is I need to change in what I'm doing, and how I'm putting conditions into the mind before I sit. Or maybe whatever time of day we're sitting, maybe that needs to change. Sometimes the mind is just not ready to meditate. Maybe we have to take it for a walk first, where we're really like finding a way to let go of all of the busyness. Restlessness is really embedded in our human nature and form. This is an extremely restless realm. It's like we're restless from the start because we need things just to survive, just to have enough physical comfort. And restlessness is like one of the very last fetters to drop at arahantship. So it's like, don't feel bad about being restless. This is just a normal part of the human package. But we have to make extra effort, I think, to find a way to give the mind the proper conditions. Hope you didn't hate that answer too much, Nancy.
No, it's good. I need to hear it. So thank you.
You're welcome. I mean, we really have to use our discernment. Like Ajahn Ganha is like, people are meditating too much. They just want to go into stillness, and they sit there for hours, and then they get up and they're angry with someone, and that is important to notice. If that's happening, we have to back up and figure out, like, what else on the Noble Eightfold Path do I need to be putting effort into so that my mind is actually kind and compassionate and patient. It can't be about me and my meditation, me and my samadhi. Damn it, stop making noise. I'm practicing. It's like, no, because it's not the right approach. It's all self, sense of self. So we have to see that. Okay, this is where my personality is like running rampant, and I need to see differently. So when we're seeing with the Dhamma, we're not seeing through the personality. This is the big shift. So this idea of be present with what we're experiencing, see what the personality is up to, but then we're observing with the wisdom of the Dhamma. And we're coming back to the Dhamma, which is that kindness, that compassion, that letting go, patience. That's all part of the Dhamma. Not self. The self is not a patient thing. Even if it's cultivated some patience, it really just wants what it wants and acts the way it acts because of conditions.
Thank you, Ayya.
You're welcome. Thank you for asking that. That's an important one that I think everybody struggles with at some point. Maybe almost every daily point. Yeah. Thank you. Suzanne?
Hi, thank you. So I realized about an hour ago, I had just broken a precept.
Okay.
Because there was noticing I lied.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't seem like, awful, but there was like a mixture of excitement to realize it and then remorse. So the investigation seemed to be about the self, like, oh yeah, I just wanted to look a certain way. That's why I lied.
Mm-hmm.
So I, created this self that wasn't real. So it seems like I've asked this question before. Maybe people just always ask the same question. But it's something about, so it seems like that remorse is that like a sankhara or a consciousness?
Well, healthy remorse is one of the protectors of the world. It's Hiri, Ottappa are the two protectors of the world. So that kind of remorse, how do they translate it? Like moral shame or moral dread? Conscience and prudence. That's your conscience, behaving properly. But if we take remorse too much to like beat ourselves up, that's the personality getting out of control again. If we recognize that it's good to feel the sting of having done something unskillful, but then not cling to that. Just know, okay, that was unskillful and I don't want to do that again. So then investigating, what led up to that. And I think that's how we do it. It's like, whoa, I wanted it to look like something it wasn't. And if I wanted it to look like something it wasn't, then what do I need to do to live according to the way I want it to look? Because it's, I want it to be that way, not just look that way. It's like Ajahn Pasano one time said, yeah, we want to look good. How about being good? Let's try being good.
Being good.
Well, yeah.
That's what I was confused about, because the noticing could just be like the sting. It could be immediate, but then it could also be like a longer reflection. So how do we know? We just ask ourselves, or what?
You mean, how do we know whether to make it a longer reflection?
Yeah.
Well, I think we know that we're reflecting on it, we should reflect on it if we don't really understand it. Like, what made me do that? Why did I do that? We want to be sure to reflect on it enough to understand where it came from. Really, I think we can use those first three noble truths as the guide. When we see that it happened, that's the first one. We're turning towards, it's really dukkha. There's dukkha there. A lot of times we don't recognize dukkha because we've learned so much how to just cover it over. or bypass it or figure like, okay, this is just part of life. I can bear with it, or it's not so bad. Sometimes people will say, I don't have dukkha. Oh, come on. Of course you have dukkha. You're living in a human body. You can't get away without it. But we think like that because we don't want to emphasize it. We want to just kind of like, oh, that's not so bad. That's not so bad. There's so much good in my life. I don't have to think about the negative part. And it is true that we can take that too far and only be looking at the negative part. We don't want to do that either. But when we see, okay, wow, I just lied. Okay, that's the first part. That's we turn towards the dukkha of that. A feeling is going to arise immediately. Like you said, there was some excitement in recognizing it. So breaking through the delusion. And then there was the remorse of recognizing that, hey, I don't want to do that. There's pain that comes with that. There's pain that comes with it because of wanting to be something we're not. That's, like if we look at the root, second noble truth, there's something of that nature. And then because the mind is conditioned to do that, we don't really understand it fully yet. So we want to really, really investigate that. So that's how you know you want to investigate. Especially when you see that this comes up again and again, because we have patterns. They're usually not just one-off slips. It's like if we're slipping into something, what are we slipping into? We're slipping into old conditioning. And that's what we want to uproot. And this isn't to imply that we need to uproot everything that's in our conditioning. We don't, because at some point the wisdom, the insight arises, and then we're thinking completely differently, and we don't have to undo all of the negative patterns that we've gotten conditioned into us for millennia, for lifetimes. But when there's one here in the moment, then we have to deal with that one. And so investigating it until we can really see it clearly. We can see where it came from. We understand it. We can see what we have to let go of in order to find that relief. And then we already have planted in our mind, I'm not going to do that again. And then if it does happen again, we go through the same process to really understand why this body-mind complex would go there and how to really see that for what it is. And if we really see it for what it is through wisdom, through Dhamma, we'll have compassion for ourselves. It won't be this punitive, judgmental critic that's on your back. It's not like that. That's another layer of investigation is needed there in order to understand that pattern.
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you. And just one other thought as you're talking, I'm having the thought is coming, lying isn't always verbal. It could be behavioral, right? That's confusing about what the self is.
The thing to remember about lying, like the precept against lying, is that the Buddha said, if lying is really, you're trying to deceive, you're trying to mislead, you are gonna lie, you lie and you lied. It's not, certainly we also want to curtail exaggeration because it has the same kind of, why do we exaggerate? We want people to think we're better than we are, or we want people to think my situation is worse than it is. The old kind of like, are you lying? Are you bragging or complaining? It's like, either way, it's the sense of self trying to like shade it over, And as long as we've got that kind of delusion going on, we haven't really faced and dealt with the reality. Yeah. And remember that the gold of the goal is awakening. If we want to wake up, we have to face reality. We're never gonna see it if we keep trying to like, paint a pretty picture over it.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Ling?
Yeah, I actually have a real situation. For next Monday, I'm going to sit in a meeting with someone who has hurt me quite badly. I've been trying to avoid to see this person just to make sure I don't have a bad reaction. So I've been thinking of, your meditation. I'm also trying to practice already for quite a while, like, recognize I'm getting worried, and then recognize that feeling, and then bring this kind of gentleness to myself. My question is, sometimes I've been thinking about this meeting for a while, for Monday, and then seems like that kind of worry is gone, so relax. And then for a while it's coming back.
Yeah.
So my question is, do I just keep repeating doing this? Because my feeling is I'm so afraid I would say something and she would kind of capture me, or I made my even worse speech and made even worse karma. So how do I stop?
Yeah, I have a suggestion. This reminds me very much of what Grace talked about, being like dirt.
Yes, I've been thinking of that a lot as well.
Yeah, this is the way to go, because yes, you can feel these understandable feelings arising and subsiding and coming again. But if you really look at how can I just be like dirt, just accepting whatever she says, listening to whatever she says, being open to trying to understand her and where she's coming from, and completely letting go of whatever is coming up in your mind. So this, just practice like this the next couple days, where you really imagine the earth and meditating like the earth, just like there's no way, they're going to be able to dig up enough earth so that there's not earth. Just look at that section of the simile of the saw. I think also you might want to look at the longer advice to Rahula. I think it's number 62 in the Majjhima Nikaya. Simile of the saw, I think, is number 11. And just really focus on that, like how to be like dirt, how to like this helps the personality view just like subside, because you're just going to let whatever she does, just being there with, listening, understanding, letting go of the feelings. Don't come back from the feeling or the pattern of your thinking. Come back from being the earth, just the earth. That's what I would recommend.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Because trying to control your mind is not going to be the way to go. I don't think trying to control, I think the way to go is to really try to completely change your perception. If you're the earth and you're just listening to what's happening there, and taking it in and trying to understand, this is a human being who's dealing with whatever they're dealing with. There's conditioning that's behind all of that. And just try to be earth. Dirt. I like that she calls it dirt. It surprised me a little when she first talked about it, she said she appreciated my advice, but what she really got out of the sutta was I have to be like dirt. And I'm like, oh, cool. So anyhow, I think something like that. And if dirt doesn't work for you, try water. To be like water. The water is just going to flow. It's not going to complain about whatever this person's putting into it. It's just going to flow. It's going to go around the rocks. It's not going to try to move the rocks, but the water has a lot of power. But it doesn't know, it's not trying to do anything. It's just flowing down to the lowest point. Just be like water. Just think about those images and see what works for you. That makes the mental state calm and patient and peaceful, and letting go of whatever the personality is afraid of or sort of sensitive to, because you're going to be okay.
Thank you so much, Ayya.
You're welcome, Ling. Anne? I can't hear you.
Yeah, thank you. This, whole session has been very powerful, and I spoke earlier as we came on about my concern for my husband's health, and through the process and of listening and so on, I'm realizing that an underlying issue for me that I have faced the reality is my own health, which is not, of course, surprising, and which I'm aware of. But, I had essentially some bad news from the cardiologist a couple of weeks ago, just in the form of 2 more medications. And I'm like, whoa. That, my limitation is fatigue, which is probably related to the cardiac situation. But I have to, and so I was sort of hearing you and investigating, and I go, well, that's where I actually have to start. And it doesn't mean I don't care about Ed and what's happening for him, and I will be there for him, but I have to deal with maybe what I'm really trying not to face, and that is my own limitations. So I just wanted to share that with you.
Thank you, Anne. It's so true. It's helpful to all of us, I think, to remember that so much of our sorrow, so much of our fear is really not for other people. It's because we are understandably afraid of our own death, of our own illnesses, of our own, experience with aging. And that is really kind of where the rubber meets the road, because this body-mind complex is conditioned through all of millennia evolution to be self-preserving. And we want to maintain it. We want to maintain this me. And it's gonna fall apart. It's going to disintegrate. That this individual personal self is not the reality. If we want to know who we really are, then we need to completely let go of this idea of being this self. And then when we find out who we really are, it's not a me in any sense. Those lines that all conditioned things are impermanent and all things are not self. This is really the truth. And yeah, that's right. That's the place we have to work, right there. Thank you, Anne. Thanks for bringing that forward. Well, thank you, everyone. I think we'll stop the recording